In this lecture, I want to explain the model view controller design paradigm and the internal and external visibility of the WebDompro entities. I will also show you how to create a custom controller and view the component interface. SAP's WebDompro is built on the foundation of the MVC design paradigm. MVC was invented by the Norwegian software designer Trygve Renskog while working at Xerox PARC in the late 1970s. The first implementation of this design paradigm was with the release of the Smalltalk 80 programming language. MVC was a revolutionary design paradigm because it was the first to describe software components in terms of the functional responsibilities that each must fulfill and message protocols to which each component must respond. SAP modified and extended the original MVC specification to create the WebDompro toolset. Now let me explain the terms internal and external visibility of a WebDompro. The architecture of a WebDompro component can be divided into two parts: external and internal visibility. The horizontal dashed line in the figure separates the entities that are visible outside the component from those that are only visible within the component. The internally visible parts can be further divided into visual entities and programming entities. Visual entities are related to the UI. They are generated by the WebDompro framework and passed to the client. The internally visible entities consists of windows and views. A view consists of a view layout and the corresponding view controller. The view controller can contain navigation plugs, methods, and a context. A window embeds one or more views and has a corresponding window controller. A window controller can contain navigation plugs as well, methods, and a context. Each view can be embedded in multiple windows, but remember, not at the same time. The outbound plug of a window can be connected to any inbound plug of embedded views, and the outbound plug of a view can be connected to any inbound plug of the embedding window. However, navigation between windows of the same component is not possible. The component controller as an internal entity works as a component-wide controller. Program logic related only to a certain view, for example, checking user input, is coded in the related view controller. Usage declarations between the controllers allow you to access the context data, the public attributes, and the methods of the declared controller. This declared controller is then also called a use controller. A view controller cannot be declared as a use controller for other controllers because this violates good programming practice. Remember the MVC programming paradigm. Business logic should not be part of the WebDompro component, but should be defined outside the component to ensure high reusability. To encapsulate the related source code, you can use global ABAP classes like assistance classes or any other ABAP class. You can use function modules or you can use web services. Custom controllers are optional controllers defined by the developer. These controllers are sometimes used to modularize component content. For example, custom controllers can act as local controllers for some views, or they can be used to encapsulate the logic related to a certain model class. The use of custom controllers allows you to reduce the content of the component controller by populating subfunctions. I want to quickly demonstrate you how to create a custom controller. Just right-click on your WebDompro component, choose Create, Custom Controller. Name your custom controller, save your custom controller, and here you are. In the tree view, you have a new entry, custom controllers, where you can create many custom controllers. I can just now start creating a second custom controller. The structure of the custom controller is the same as the component controller structure. You have properties where you define controller usage, you have a context, you have attributes, you have events, you can define methods, and this is exactly the same as for the component controller. If a WebDyn Pro component, let's call it parent component, needs access to another WebDyn Pro component, let's call it child component, the parent component can declare the use of the child component. A specific component usage instance is created, that means instantiating the usage declaration, and the parent component accesses the functions of the child component through its component interface controller. The only parts of a WebDyn Pro component that are externally visible are the interface controller and the interface view. All WebDyn Pro components have only one interface controller. Through the interface controller, data, methods, and event handlers can be made accessible to other components. Interface views represent the visual interface of a WebDyn Pro component. There's a one-to-one relationship between a window and an interface view. Each time a window is defined, a related interface view is automatically generated, which makes the window accessible from outside the component. The interface view only exposes those inbound and outbound plugs to the component user that have the interface property checked. Methods and context data of the window are not accessible through the related interface view. If a component has no views, there is no need to have windows. In this case, the component does not implement an interface view. Components without any visual interface are called faceless components. A WebDyn Pro application is the entry point into a WebDyn Pro component and is the only WebDyn Pro entity that can be addressed through a URL. There's often a one-to-one relationship between an interface view and an application. In the same way that the functions in an ABAP module pool are accessed by defining multiple transaction codes, the functions of a single WebDyn Pro component can be accessed by defining multiple applications. Each application addresses a different interface view and/or different inbound plugs of the interface view, which is closely related to the different inbound plugs of a window. To define a WebDyn Pro application, you have to specify the following elements: the component to be instantiated, which is then known as the root component; the interface view of the root component to be used. The default view in this interface view defines the default view assembly. And third and last, you have to define the inbound plug that acts as an entry point for the nominated interface view. And this inbound plug must be of the type startup.